We are following developments just across the border to see if a massive worker demonstration will have an impact here in Western New York. The Public Service Alliance of Canada represents more than 100,000 federal employees who have been on picket lines as part of a nationwide strike that's almost a week old now. The union's president accuses the government of dragging out negotiations and says workers may get more aggressive and target ports of entry. That's raising concerns in border towns like here in Buffalo, wondering what impact we might see. Listen to this part of a report from CTV.
Thousands of striking federal government workers are now threatening to escalate their fight with both sides of the fence, accusing each other of dragging their feet on a deal.
The union is threatening an escalation with picket lines popping up in strategic locations, including ports across the country.
It's going to slow everything down. Trucks will be slowed down at the border. It'll be hard to cross.
The Public Service Alliance of Canada is ratcheting up the pressure on a government who today sent out an open letter suggesting that union leadership is making unrealistic demands.
The government says the union went into negotiations with nearly 600 demands. At this point, only 4 sticking points remain, chief among them salaries and the ability to work remotely, something we just discussed. Travel and trade with Canada is so important for Western New York. So as this strike drags on, we wonder what we should be watching here. Rosanna Berardi is a local immigration attorney, and she joins me now live. Rosanna, it's always great to have you on the show here, and I know how plugged in you are to all of this. You just heard the union official there in that report say that ports of entry could be targeted for these upcoming pickets. When you look at which subsections of federal workers are actually part of this strike, what do you anticipate could be the impact here, especially we think of border traffic and the like?
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. Always great to be on. So it's important to note that the officers that are at the Canadian border, so if you're a Buffalonian going to Swiss Chalet, you're inspected by an officer of the CBSA. That entity of the Canadian federal government is not on strike. So the movement of people should not be problematic for the Western New York region. The problem can come up with the movement of goods. So there is an entity under the Canadian federal law that is on strike called Transport Canada. And they can slow things down tremendously in terms of truck traffic or the movement of commercial goods across the border. So people, not really an issue unless those trucks, they can back up on the Peace Bridge for miles and miles, could be delays. But it's important to know there is no prohibition of entering Canada. The officers that are on the other side of that border are working and are not part of the strike.
So, Rosanna, looking at the reporting that we're getting now out of Canada, based on your conversations with your sources over there, how likely is it that this thing could last? And if it drags on a long time, is there the potential that the impacts here could become more severe?
Well, from my understanding and research, it's quite the list of demands on behalf of the union. I think there's over 500. The major sticking points are the entitlement to work from home as well as increased wages. If this does go on and on, I'm concerned because here we are at the end of April, and we all know how busy traffic gets at the U.S.-Canadian borders in the summer, particularly in Western New York. Everyone is so excited to go back to Niagara-on-the-Lake and Crystal Beach and Shirkston, that truck traffic can really slow things down. So I am concerned. I hope this can be settled soon, but I am not so optimistic just because of the number of demands right now.
Attorney Rosanna Berardi is managing partner at Berardi Immigration Law. Always kind enough to help us understand what's happening. The border is always a story, Rosanna, so thanks for your time once again. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.